Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, May 6th. We are here live. Phone lines are open. Let me check and see. Looks like we've already got calls coming in. Jump in and join us. Hit that call now button on your app, or you can also dial 855-950-3835. If you're watching any of the live streams, you can put some questions into the chat. I will try to keep an eye on those throughout the day as well and maybe answer some of those. At the bottom of the hour, I'll be joined by Brent Hutto from truckstop.com. We'll be talking about what's going on with rates, volume, the industry, all that good stuff, and who knows what else we might talk about. I've got a couple things. Looks like calls are going to be busy today. I'll go over a couple of these. We're probably just going to get right into the calls today. None of these were all that important. It was just headlines I was reading. I can kind of scroll through them. This one, I have a feeling we're going to talk about this on Friday. Yeah, and this may turn into an interesting discussion. Jason Cannon just wrote an article, and he did a test drive over in Europe of a Volvo. And I think most of the listeners know how I feel about bigger engines. We've eliminated most 16-liter engines in this country. Cat used to have a sort of popular 16-liter. I'm pretty sure is there still a DD16? I'll have to look that up. Volvo's D16, I believe, was ended in 2017 or 2018, I think. We don't talk much about them. I haven't had a call with a 16-liter engine in years, I don't think. I was never a fan of them. I thought they were big, heavy, inefficient. But this article's got me thinking. In Europe, Volvo is releasing a 17-liter engine. And there are some countries over there that have raised some weight and length limits. And they're pushing it as a green option. And technically, it can be not just the bigger engine and heavier weights and longer combinations. It doesn't do us a whole lot of good to use a bigger engine to move 80,000 pounds. That's not efficient. But if we use a bigger engine to move 160,000 pounds, that could be a significant advantage. This is what the railroad talks about all the time. They move a lot more freight with less fuel and less emissions. The railroad is greener than we are. Now, I get the whole electric push. I'm not a big fan of it. That's why I'm actually kind of interested in ideas like this. Could we adopt those same kind of weights here in the U.S. and use bigger trucks? This thing puts out like 2,800 foot-pounds of torque. We've got to figure out tires and all kinds of crazy things for that. But it might be an interesting conversation to have. We'll probably hold that one till Friday. That should be a good discussion for that day. This isn't a big deal. This was just a small article, but I'm been watching this more and more, and we do have to pay attention to this. I've talked about it before. I've talked about it from the point of view of being on the road, hundreds or thousands of miles away from home, and being prepared. Here's the headline. Kansas City Scout Traffic Services hit by cyber attack. Now, we've been hearing a lot of cyber attacks, but they are claiming that it could take them months to get their camera system back online. Now, they don't talk about who or why, or they don't give any details. I'm not sure why you do a cyber attack on a highway camera system. It's not like it's really necessary to have a highway camera system. Maybe this is just practice. Maybe it's just hackers with nothing better to do. But they did enough damage that it could take months to get this system back online. It doesn't say whether it was a ransomware attack. If it was, the state must have refused to pay. Because in a ransomware attack, they take control of your files or your servers or your system. They hack in, they shut things down, and then they demand ransom, and then they release it. So they just didn't give any details on this. But you should be prepared. This is This is the new world, and we are so dependent on some of our systems, not this camera system. But if they can hack this, they can hack banking. They've already hacked water supplies, electrical supplies. We've had meat packing plants. This is the new warfare, and not a whole lot we can do to stop it, but I bring it up and talk about it so you can be prepared for it. Having cash is a big one. Having food and water. The tough one is in some of these situations being able to communicate with people at home. I don't have a really good answer for that one yet. We should probably talk about that more. Let's get to some phone calls. I had some other stuff here, but I'll hold off because calls are starting to pile up on us. Let's go to Kentucky. Paul, welcome to the program.
Howdy.
What's on your mind today?
Well, a few things. Firstly, sympathies for the Pittsburgh Power team on the passing of Pete Sharp. He'll be missed.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
So, a couple of months ago, one of my nephews, he decided he was packing up and he went over to Aussie. He's driving a road train.
Okay.
So, the cost of trucking over there is really expensive. So, he's doing livestock. He's in the Northern Territory, which can be kind of brutal. The other day, he'd driven 4 hours on a dirt road and hadn't seen a single vehicle or person. And then he put a short video up, and he was fueling up. So he pumped on 2,210 liters of fuel, which is about 567 gallons. And the pump price was, this is one fuel up, the pump price was $4,330.
Oh. Now, let's try to... That's kind of crazy, but let's try to put that into perspective. And I don't know if he told you this or not. On that load that he was on when he had to spend that much on fuel, what's the rate?
I have no idea what they're working for, but he's just a company driver, but he's getting paid really good. He's grossing about $3,000 a week as a company driver. Wow.
Now,
yeah.
I don't keep up with Australia's economy and what's going on over there other than just headlines here and there. 3,000 a week, so we're talking about 150,000 a year. We really don't. I'm sure somewhere in the United States there's a company driver making that, but it's pretty rare. We made a big deal about the fact that Walmart, pays above 100,000. 150 is significantly more than that, though. I mean, that's a big raise. Is that fairly common in Australia for a driver to make that, or is that? Do you know?
I think so.
I don't know.
Like, especially if you're doing like the over there in Western Australia where they're doing the mining, Port Hedland, and everything like that.
Yeah.
Those guys are knocking down that sort of money.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Week, as long as. But the conditions are pretty brutal. Summertime, it'll be 125, 130 degrees, and the flies will just about carry you away. So.
Oh, kind of like the Dallas truck show.
Worse than that.
No, that's what the Dallas truck show usually feels like to me most years.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why they stopped having it. People couldn't handle the humidity or something, the heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I only caught I was talking with Angie, and then when I came on, I heard you talking about longer combinations and heavier vehicles.
Yes.
Well, I'm all for it because you'll use more fuel, but your ton miles per gallon will increase. Overall, it's good for the economy, but a lot of people in this country don't even understand ton miles per gallon.
No, they don't, because the only time we talk about that, and we don't talk about it, the railroad does, because they brag about it because they're way more efficient than we are. They move a lot more freight per ton mile, like you said, with less fuel, less emissions, less problems. And we seem to be very against heavier and longer limits. And the industry seems to be very against it. And then we have the safety groups that seem to be very against it. Here's the reality of it, though. And I've had 2 experiences of outside the norm. So in Ohio, FedEx, RPS at the time, would pull triples on the Ohio Turnpike only. It was the only place we were allowed to do it. Triples paid If I remember right, it was 10 cents more a mile to put that back trailer on there, and people would freak out. They're like, oh, 10 cents, that's it to pull. Plus, you're getting all the drop-in hooks. And the drop-in hooks, if you are just reasonably proficient, if you look at what drop-in hooks pay per hour, it's a significant amount of money. It wasn't something you should just ignore. The more trailers you're dropping and hooking, it pays a lot of money, and your truck's not moving at the time. You don't have any expenses. You're not really burning a whole lot of fuel. So more drop-in hooks, 10 cents more a mile. And I did the math. My cost went up 2 cents a mile to have that third trailer back there on the turnpike. 2 cents a mile. And I'm getting 10 plus the additional drop-in hooks. And the safety record, because of all the controls, the driver had to have so many years experience, couldn't have any accidents or tickets in the last couple of years. I forget what all the criteria was. You're only doing it on a very controlled highway. The safety record was way better than the average at FedEx and way, way better than the average on the highway with trucks. I had the same experience when I moved my operation to Florida. In Florida, we could pull double 45-foot trailers on the Florida Turnpike. Same thing.
Yep.
My net pay was significantly better. Safety record was significantly better. You know, we're not talking about trying to run around in downtown Chicago with these things. It would be controlled. No. It's only done on certain highways, the way we do in the Pacific Northwest. We run more axles, heavier weights. I don't know why we fight a national policy so much about this.
Yeah. Well, it's a patchwork all across the country anyway. Oklahoma and Kansas.
Yeah, it's a mess.
You can pull triples and doubles. And
then
Florida,
Michigan.
Turnpike. And
not
Michigan,
only.
And then Massachusetts, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only is it a mess for, trying to figure out where you can do it, where you can't, and it's so limiting. Well, what good does it do me to be able to pull this weight if I can't cross this state line? So, yes, there should be some control on it, but it should be a national policy, not this patchwork of the states. It even creates specialized equipment. Michigan, you have those trains. Out here, you have the trailers with the lift axles and the tractors with steerable axles. And let's just get a national policy around this. And as an industry, I don't see why we don't embrace this.
Yeah. So, right, I'll let you get to the next man.
So, what? Can you believe I'm actually maybe promoting a 17-liter engine?
Miracles do happen.
Yeah, we'll never see it in this country for this reason. But this thing's like almost, one of the options was almost 800 horsepower and 2,800 foot-pounds of torque, and this is in a cab over.
Yep. Yeah, well, that truck my nephew's driving, it's a Australian-built Kenworth. I'm not exactly sure what model it is. It's probably a T909, which is the Australian version of a W900, but it's taller. Short hood, but taller.
Okay.
And it'll have a Cummins in it, and it's probably rated at between 600 and 630 horsepower and an 18-speed. And it might have a 390 or a 410 rear end in it. I don't know, but
yeah.
So,
all right.
But yeah. So
good stuff.
I'll carry on. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you next time. Let's go to Illinois. Austin, welcome.
How are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Got a question about a product I saw. I was at the Iowa 80 over the weekend, and I saw something called an air cell. And I asked some people about opinion, but everybody's telling me it's no good. But then I read about it online, and it says like it's guaranteed fuel mileage increase.
Well,
I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have, but it's been a long time. Was this something that goes in the intake?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this from a long, long time ago. You're right. I haven't heard about this. Garbage.
It's garbage?
It's garbage. And look, they can write the word guaranteed fuel mileage all over the place. What is their guarantee? If it doesn't work, they give me the money back for the device. Big deal. I mean, lots of companies do that. And they do it because it gets people to buy things, and as long as you didn't spend that much on it, you probably won't return it even if it doesn't work. They also know in fuel mileage, Most people don't track their fuel mileage well enough or don't know how to really know whether this device works or not. But way back then, this goes back to when I was testing every product I could find. Even when I knew it wasn't going to work, I would test it just so I could say I tested it and it didn't work. There's a reason this product used to be somewhat popular. We used to see it around all the time, and now we don't. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
If it would have worked, I promise.
But
hey, this is why I tested things. If you notice, a lot of the stuff that does work, we make it a part of our show. We might sell it in our store. That's why I wanted to find things that worked. If all I ever would do was come on the air and say, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, after a while, why would people listen? I think more people listen to find things that do work. So I tested and tested and tested, and if this would have worked, I promise you I would promote it. It just didn't.
yeah, that was the first time I ever saw it, so I would have.
It's been around a long, long time. I'm thinking I really started getting involved in fuel economy heavy in about the mid-'90s. I started doing it on my own trucks in the early '90s, and then as I got really good at knowing what worked and what didn't work, I started writing articles about things. I'm positive this was around in the '90s.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. It's been around a really long time.
Yeah.
I was told that like a lot of people like it and they see a benefit, but I mean they're probably just trying to sell it to me to say that.
Well, here's
So
the
I'll
other
buy
thing
it
you'll find from people. People would much rather tell you that they bought something and it worked rather than they bought something and it was a mistake. But my question to that, you know what I would ask them if they told me I love this thing. What would the next question be?
Yeah, well, how much does
Why?
your fuel mileage go up?
Yeah, and that would be the big one because that's the whole point of this. What was your 30-day average prior to this? And the conversation would probably stop right there because my guess is most of the people promoting this to you don't know their 30-day average.
Right. Yeah.
And they would go by things like, if they're even tracking fuel mileage on every tank, which I doubt, they would go by something like, oh, well, you know, my gauge usually shows, or my IFTA usually shows that I got 6.2, and this time I got 6.4. Yeah, okay. And they'll attribute it all to that, even though that's unfortunately the lack of knowledge we have in this industry on how to test fuel economy.
Well, sounds good. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to really buy it until I did a little bit more research. Because
how much was it, by the way?
I thought it was like $200.
Okay. If I remember right, it's always been like 100 and something. It wasn't, and that's another one of those products that can last, like this one, for decades. It's cheap enough people will buy it. And like I said, even if they have some money back guarantee, people usually don't bother for $100 or $200 option, and they don't really know if it worked or not. And then they actually will convince themselves that it works. It's kind of the placebo effect. They'll tell you that their truck runs better.
Yeah, I'm assuming they will do that.
Here's the thing. Like I said, if I remember right, this is just some kind of blade or device that goes inside the intake and it changes the airflow or something along those lines. We have turbochargers. These aren't naturally aspirated engines. You know, what if we lose 1 pound of boost somewhere because of a leak? That has an impact. The turbocharged systems have been designed pretty well. We're not going to stick some piece of plastic in there and dramatically change airflow in a way that has any impact on this engine.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Yeah, I don't know.
We have turbochargers, for example, on my coach, I know this was an extreme, producing 60 pounds of boost. You know, the average truck can do 20 to 30 pounds of boost. That's a lot of pressure. And that's what we want. We're trying to cram as much air into that cylinder as we can. That's the whole point of a turbocharger. This little piece of plastic in 30 pounds of air pressure blowing by it is doing absolutely nothing.
Huh. Oh, okay. Well, that's all I had. I gotta go. I'm just got to my delivery. So.
All right, get to work. Good talking to you. Let's go to South Carolina. Terrence, welcome.
What's up, Kev? So I haven't been doing the X3 bar. Just didn't feel like it. Didn't.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing. I got to get back and to a routine and
good for
try
you.
and get normal again.
Yeah.
So I get to do it this morning, and so I get when I do my push, the chest pushes, I use the not the thick band, the second band actually. I use the second band.
Okay.
I was using the third band, but I'm like, all right, let me do this. I'll just do the second and see what I got.
Right.
Well, I pumped out like 35 of them.
Holy cow.
And I was like, man, I guess I got to change to the other band. I'm like, all right. So I went to go do the tricep, pull down.
Uh-oh. Terrence? Boy, we lost you completely. I'm not hearing anything. Terrence, I'm going to put you back. Wait a minute. I just went to put him back in the queue, and then I heard him. Let's try that again. All right, Terrence, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So
the last word we heard was tricep.
The 30 of them. What was that? Yeah, triceps.
Okay.
So I do them. I do like 30 of them. I'm looking around. I'm going, I got the right band. I look at so it's again. I was using the other band, the bigger one, not the thick one, the second one. But I didn't want to dive right into that because I haven't done it in like a month.
Yeah.
So then I go to the next thing is the overhead. Now remember, right? The white band. You had the same
always
problem
talk about
I did in the beginning.
Right.
Couldn't get 8 to 10.
Yeah.
If lucky. I banged out 15 of those. I'm like, I gotta figure this out because I don't. And here's what's weird. I've been having a lot of shoulder pain.
Okay.
On both arms, not just one arm. I thought maybe it was the way I was sleeping, or being tense from all the bullshit I've been going through, and just I don't know. Maybe I'm like holding some kind of friggin' anger or something that's making me feel this pain in my shoulder. And I've never had like any kind of inflammation in my shoulders or anything, but it was in both of them. So I'm like, so I don't know if this. I'm thinking it's that L-Ruderod yogurt because I've been dedicated on that. I don't know if the normal stuff I'm doing, getting in and out of the truck, opening, walking, doing the lift gate and all that stuff. Right? They do, the tailgate. I got to push on it sometimes.
That's not it. And I'll tell you why. Look at people who have jobs where they lift pretty heavy stuff all day long. One of the examples I see around a lot, people who do stone work. Stone patios, stone walls, that kind of stuff. That stuff's heavy. And you are touching every one of those over and over and over all day long. Do any of those people look like they could win a bodybuilding contest? Not even close. No. Some of them have zero muscle definition. The reason is their body gets accustomed to that level and they never change that. If you notice, that's why we have all these different bands. Because as you challenge a muscle and it becomes stronger, the only way to continue to grow that muscle is to challenge it with more resistance. And then as soon as the muscle gets used to that, you got to challenge it to more resistance. So the stuff we do on the job day in and day out doesn't build a whole lot of muscle. And once it gets to a certain point, that's it. You're not going to build any more. I have a couple theories on this. This is kind of odd. Here's one of my theories. With everything that's been going on with you, have you been working less?
No,
you haven't been. Okay.
I'm going to work Saturday. I work all day Saturday.
The only thing I can think, and you may be able to test this, it's just possible that for whatever reason, when you were doing the bands regularly, you weren't recovering. And I think you do, but I try to always make sure you have 72 hours between working a muscle and working it again. So that's usually 3 days is ideal. 2 days is okay, but if I saw results like this, I would start to wonder, maybe you're not recovering. Maybe you're working the muscle too often, too soon again. And when you quit doing the X3 bar for that period of time, your muscles actually recovered and rebuilt.
Recovered and built, okay.
That's my only guess. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but one of the ways you could test that,
I'll let you know the progress.
yeah, is what happens now as you continue to work out each day.
Okay. I'll let you know.
All right.
I'll let someone else get in there.
Sounds
Thank
good.
You, Kev.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon. We will have Brent coming up here soon. I think we're going to try to get Brent on the video today. The announcement about Pete Sharp at Pittsburgh Power, I was kind of torn on whether I was going to mention that today or wait till tomorrow when I have the team from Pittsburgh Power on. Mentioning it today was fine. I just I was still a little in shock myself about it. I've known Pete, well, for as long as I've known Bruce. Pete's was working at Pittsburgh Power since he was a teenager. His twin brother works there. They've been there a long, long time. Pete was an amazing guy. And I always knew Pete to be very healthy. So this whole thing was a shock when Pete was first diagnosed with cancer, and he missed the show for a while. And then he came back. And I was really encouraged because he was doing much better. So it was really a shock last night when I got that call from Bruce. So I'm sure we'll talk about that tomorrow, reminisce about Pete. A lot of great times. And I know this has got to be really, really hard for Bruce. That's a long, long time to have an employee. And when you run a small business, no matter how hard you try not to sometimes, it's kind of tough. I'd like to say that, well, I'm just mixed about this. I can't have employees in a company our size not become friends with them. It's impossible. I've tried. In a small company, you spend a lot of time together. You become friends, and it becomes much more than a business relationship. And it was the same thing for me with Pete. We spent a lot of time together over the years at truck shows, and it's really tough. And I don't want to get too deep into this topic, but I realize that I'm getting to the age that my peers will die more often now. It's a shame that I have to say that when I'm 60, 61, I guess now. But I know that's the case, but it seems to me like we just spend an awful lot of time these days talking more about death than we used to, or sudden deaths, or unexplained deaths, or turbo cancers, or just doesn't seem right. All right, let me check to see. Do we have Brent here yet? Do we know where Brent is? Angie, just send me a text. Let me know what's going on with that. I am going to grab another call while we're waiting. I thought Brent might be in by now. Let's go to North Carolina. Jim, welcome.
Hey, Kevin, Jim here, as you know. Yeah, I got something. I don't know if you heard of a guy. I know you're big in the stock market, investments and things.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with what's going on in South Dakota and in Tennessee right now about trying to restore the Uniform Commercial Code back to 1994?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, you've got to watch a video. Yeah, basically they changed the law in 1994 for a reason. The banksters, the central banks, back in the Great Depression, they basically took everything. When the stock market crashed and they closed the bank, they basically took everybody's collateral: land, houses, farms, stocks, equity, any kind of equity. So this guy named Peter Webb, you just look up on YouTube. His handle on YouTube is called The Great Taking. 3 words: The Great Taking.
Okay.
He explains, he has about an hour-long documentary. He used to be a billion-dollar hedge fund manager at the New York Stock Exchange. Lives in Sweden now, but he flew all the way into Sweden for these current court sessions where basically what happens is in 1994, starting in 94, state by state, the central banks got states to change their Uniform Commercial Code where if there's an insolvency, instead of the stockholder or the property holder, say Lehman Brothers goes bankrupt like it did. Well, before 1994, you, the investor, could say, well, sorry, you went bankrupt. Here's where you can send my shares. That. So now what you have is you've got something called a preferable, what's it called? I forgot the term. You'll see it in the videos, though. But if you just look up The Great Taking, there's a live hearing that went on in Tennessee, I think about a month ago, where they're trying to the banks are fighting this for all they got, because what they want, they engineer these booms and bubbles is what this Peter Webb says. These are not accidental. The way they spend all this money and then all of a sudden it crashes. He said this is all a way to take, So basically, if you've got shares in anything, these all get pooled together just like the mortgage bundles did. You're an individual. Say you're using.
Wait a minute. I'll have to go. This is obviously going to get complicated. All of these things, when they start talking about central banks and the Fed and all that, gets pretty darn complicated. But I'm a little confused. When you say you have shares of something and they go bankrupt. Here's where you would send me my share. What shares are you talking? If the company's bankrupt, the shares are worthless.
I guess I'm saying if the intermediary goes bankrupt, like Lehman Brothers, say they're leveraging your shares, but they go bankrupt because they over-leveraged. There's something left. So what happens is
wait a minute.
You be able to claim your shares back.
Hold on. If I'm going through a brokerage and they're holding my shares of Apple, it's not that there's something left. Apple stock is still worth what Apple stock was worth. It could be at its highest point ever in its history. That would have nothing to do with Lehman Brothers. So absolutely, I get my shares. You can't take my stock away from me because well, all right. So I can't comment on this because I'm not aware. I did not know that people lost shares because their broker went bankrupt. If I own shares of Apple,
just got to watch the great look.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I can't comment on this because it's not making sense to me now.
All I'm asking you, I'm not literate this way, but I think you would be shocked and alarmed, at what's going on in terms of this. So all I'm asking you and your viewers, look up The Great Taking. The guy's name that's in the documentary that did this, his name is Peter Webb. He's a real guy. You can see him testifying in both South Dakota and in Tennessee state legislatures where they're trying to change the law back where you don't lose your shares if there's an insolvency of, say, Lehman Brothers or an intermediary.
So they
get pooled.
Here's one of the possibilities. And again, I'm going to have to go figure this out. If the broker, and this will keep using Lehman Brothers, if the broker, in this case Lehman Brothers, used your shares to leverage, so they've now put those shares up as collateral and borrowed money, now this is making more sense. Now the original debtor.
That's exactly.
Okay, got it. But I still need a lot more details before I could talk intelligently, but at least now I'm kind of understanding what's happening there.
You will be shocked.
Okay.
Yeah, what's happening is your individual your clearing your vendor, whoever you're dealing with to buy and sell.
Yeah,
they can say yours are segregated and they have a certain ID number, but what happens is that doesn't matter. They all get pooled at a higher thing where once they get pooled, you no longer have any rights to them.
Here's an example of something similar in the trucking industry that I've dealt with. These lease purchase programs. And this is why I say I hate lease purchase, because you have no ownership of the truck, you have no title, you have no legal avenues for almost anything. This is not uncommon. The carrier buys 1,000 trucks that they're going to lease purchase out to drivers. Well, they didn't pay cash for those trucks. They're financed. And I've seen situations where an owner-operator finishes his lease purchase, made every payment he was supposed to make, and he can't get the title because the carrier doesn't have a clear title because they haven't paid off their loans yet. And I've seen owner-operators lose that truck over this. The company goes out of business, defaults on the loans. Sure. That's the same situation. That truck should technically be owned by the owner-operator. They completed their entire contract. But until they have that title in their name, they don't have a whole lot of legal regress here. And this is the same situation. They used what technically is somebody else's property as collateral, and now two entities have a legal right to that money. It's hard. We need very clear laws on what should happen. Is they should never be allowed to use that as collateral. That's where the problem starts. It's not there.
This is how we have.
Hey, Jim, I gotta go. I need to bring Brent in, and he's been waiting a while, so I didn't mean to get tied up that long on that call. Let's get Brent in here. We're trying to bring Brent in on our live video feed today. There he is waving at us. Brent, good morning.
Good morning, KR.
And we've got audio. Your audio is going out on the live stream, so they're hearing you on the app. They're watching you on the live stream. There's one issue we're not positive about. We may or may not test today. We've done this in the past where we're trying to combine the live stream video in with our live stream audio on our app. And we get weird. Sometimes the callers that are on our phone system can hear the guest, and sometimes they can't, and sometimes the guest can't hear them. We haven't figured out what that is yet. But as long as you and I are talking, everybody can hear us, so we're good.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it looks to me like...
I hear, just to kind of give you some technical feedback, I hear myself speaking.
Oh, okay. So I got to go in and check something. I'm going to... Oh, no. Where do I fix this? I think I fixed this on your audio somewhere.
All right.
Well, that's odd. Why? Okay. Tell me now if that echo got better, or it should have disappeared completely.
Let's see if it did. Oh, yeah. It's all gone. Can you hear me?
I can. This is
great. Yeah, it sounds great. Looks good.
Yeah. This is where this gets a little weird. So there's a setting in the video, the audio part of the video, called echo cancellation.
Yeah.
And if the guest is hearing themselves, you can turn on the echo cancellation so they don't. But then sometimes the callers can't hear you anymore when I do that.
Oh.
It's kind of a weird, it shouldn't do it, but like I said, you and I can talk. You don't have an echo. We're good. Good morning. It doesn't look like you're at home, by the way. Are you on the road?
I am not. I'm in Denver, Colorado. This is actually my sister-in-law's house. And,
nice.
And she lives in Highlands Ranch, and got up this morning. Had a nice windstorm. We had a windstorm last night. Our good friends at ATBS, Todd Amon's hosting a group up at his ranch house or his cabin, and they had a bunch of trees get blown down. So he's up there with a chainsaw cutting wood right now. But no, I'm good. I'm here for I'm part of a not-for-profit that helps high schoolers and really hard-hit economic high schools help their students go from 50 to 90% graduation in 1 year. It's a really cool program. But I'm here for the national meeting of that. And but no, I'm excited to be on with you today. And the thing that's amazing, Kev, is technology allows us to do so much. It allows us to enjoy our lives. You're there in the beautiful canyons at the rivers where you are up at Oregon. Here I am in Colorado, and it's like we're sitting in the same room together.
Yeah, well, and all that sounds familiar. I know exactly where Highlands Ranch is, and I know the Amons very well. And I remember losing a bunch of trees on our property to a big late season snowstorm. Yeah. Typically in Denver and up in Colorado in the mountains, you get that nice powdery dry snow that everybody loves for skiing. But I remember it was Mother's Day weekend, and there was a day it was like 70 degrees and just sunshine, just beautiful on the mountain. And we were up at 9,200 feet is where we lived then. Yeah. And I'm out in the yard. I'm putting away all the plow and the winter stuff and the shovels and getting ready for spring. And I remember Lisa pulling in the driveway, and she says, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "I'm putting away the plow. It's May. Look at it." And she said, "We're getting a snowstorm this weekend." And I said, "No, we're not. Look at it." I said, "Even if it snows, it's just going to melt. We're fine." We got like 47 inches of snow in 3 days, and it was so heavy and wet, it was just breaking trees everywhere. It just sounded, our property sounded like just explosions going off when the trees would break.
Well, ours, last night was just a windstorm. It was pretty cool this morning, but just a windstorm last night. And it's kind of continuing on. It's not too bad now, but this morning I got up and did a little workout about 6 a.m. and it was blowing really hard. But all good stuff, man. Just good to be here. I love Colorado. Love seeing the country. I don't get to see it like a truck driver does, but I do have my Trucker Nation shirt on right here. That they're looking good. You had the Truck Stop shirt on last week.
I did.
The Trucker Nation shirt on.
There you go.
But I had this shirt specially made when I was at Mid America. We were making T-shirts and handing them out in the Truck Stop booth, and they were putting this logo on the back, and I'm like, on the back, put it on the front.
There you go.
And so I went and got my own T-shirt. This is like just a red T-shirt that I had.
Oh, yeah.
I made them put it on the front.
Nice. Hey, that was a big hit too at the booth, the T-shirt thing.
Oh yeah, they loved it. Yeah, we've been doing this our third or fourth year to do it.
A lot of people had fun with that.
Oh yeah, we always do. We love supporting our customers and love supporting the industry, and so a lot's going on, but it's just good to be out and about. And I see you've got just a standard white hoodie on today, so you're just kind of taking it easy.
Yeah, not representing any brands today. Not not trying to make any crazy statements. Just it's just Monday right now. That's all.
I got
just
it.
Monday.
That's right.
So pretty interesting stuff going on in the industry. The rates are just kind of doing what rates do. We're still waiting for something to give us some direction, but I was pretty shocked by and I just drew a blank. Carrier that went out of business. I just posted it.
Arnold Transportation.
Arnold.
Yeah.
That was
been around a while.
Almost 100 years. I got thinking about this. They were moving freight in the 1930s.
Yeah.
That's hard to imagine.
Well, Yellow was at 99 years.
I know.
Now that was a different situation. That was more bad negotiating contracts, because when you deal with union labor, it's a different deal. They had such a Yellow had such an overwhelming cost burden when it came. I'm not saying people shouldn't be paid what they should be paid, but they had a huge cost burden against. By the way, that we do have a dog here, so that's Bentley. It's not Diesel, but it's got Bentley around here.
That's Bruce's dog's name, Bruce Mellinson from Pittsburgh Power. Bentley, yeah. Bentley barks on the Tuesday show too from Pittsburgh Power. So cool. Now we have two barking dogs named Bentley on the show.
It's the new normal of life, man.
That's
Everybody
right.
working in their home environment, which, by the way, gives us a better lifestyle. And I'm all for working from home, but you think about Yellow, and that was a different situation, but the Arnold situation is just, it's like everything in life, Kevin. You and I talk about this a lot, and we try to give good wise counsel to truckers out there that as the market changes, you got to change.
Yes.
And if you don't change, it doesn't matter whether you've been doing it 1 year or almost 100. You're going to have a trouble, and if you don't fix it quickly, that trouble leads to you not being in business. It doesn't matter who you are. U.S. Express, whoever would have thought U.S. Express would have been bought by Knight Swift.
Right.
But decisions have implications. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and so or they're difficult. So, but you got to make right. You got to make the wise and pivot quickly.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. That phrase that the government threw at us when the banks were all in trouble, too big to fail. There's no such thing as too big to fail. If you fail, you fail. A business has to be able to maintain itself. We should not bail out any business, in my opinion. But the real lesson is nobody is too big to fail. In fact, I believe that the bigger you get, the more risk you're in many, many times.
Oh, well, for sure there is,
I can look at owner-operators today and say, you could have set up your business so that this economy could never put you out of business. I mean, as a single truck owner, you could do that. I show people how. But once you start getting to multi-trucks, there are no more guarantees like that. It just could be bad timing. Some fleet just had to replace their trucks because they had already pushed it out for some other reason. And they may have had to replace a bunch of trucks right when the prices went through the roof. Right. The bigger and more complicated your business is, the more likely you can be taken down by something like this. But it's crazy to think. I talked about this last week. They made it through the transition from gasoline to diesel engine in the industry. That was a huge change.
That's huge, yeah.
They made the transition from no interstates to an interstate system in the 1950s. That was a huge change in trucking. And then they made it through the biggest of all, the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, deregulation.
Yeah, deregulation.
They made it through that, and yet they couldn't make it through this dumpster fire of an economy we have now.
Well, I'll tell you, you got it no matter what. And sometimes, I don't know, I personally don't know Arnold's leadership structure and everything, but sometimes it really does take a full-on rethink of how you're going to go about doing the business. And I know that good leaders do that all the time. You're always thinking about, you take a business a year at a time, because how an economy drives it, how a certain situation like a pandemic might drive it, or certain regulations may drive it. As soon as we're done with this pandemic, we got 5 regulations coming our way in the next, over the next number of years, through the EPA, through the independent contractor, through drug and alcohol, through hours of service, through all things that kind of keep coming at us in this industry. And if you don't adjust to those things, profit matters. So as you've said, nobody has a better way to adjust their business quickly like an owner operator does. So this is why their resiliency is much higher than many players in the marketplace, because they can change quickly and put it into business quickly. I was talking to our friend Todd Amon about this, and I had him on the Freight Nation podcast, and he said, if you've got 5,000 trucks, it'll take you a year or longer to implement anything. An owner operator, 1 or 2 trucks, can do it in a day.
I make the crazy example that an owner operator can change it in the next 10 seconds. And what I mean by that is I'll get callers who call me and say, I'm really struggling. My costs, I'm not making the kind of money I used to. The rates aren't good enough. And I'll ask somebody on the air, it sounds like you're driving right now. How fast are you going? Well, 72. And I'll say, okay, slow down to 62. And we just saved $10,000 a year.
Yep.
And that's how, and they could do it right then. Instantly, they could make a change. I tried working with fleets at one time on fuel mileage. I said, look, if I can save a 1-truck owner-operator $15,000 a year, what's the potential when I go out to a 100-truck fleet? And it seemed like I had just stumbled on the Holy Grail. I was going to be, independently wealthy before I was 30 when I had this idea. Didn't work. For a lot of reasons. But what you just talked about was exactly what one of the CEOs told me. He said the exact same thing Todd just said. He said, Kevin, that strategy you implement within a couple of days with your guys will take us 1 year at least to get through the system. And in that year, something else changed, and now it wasn't such a great strategy, and maybe we should have done something else. So running a fleet is a tough business.
It really is. I'll tell you, in Truckstop, the platform on Truckstop is kind of like running a fleet. We don't own any trucks,
you're right.
But we service 100,000 or more of them, right? So that we provide service to that many. And so when we're trying to change things technically on our platform, we're in the same spot as a large fleet is. It can take us a year or 2 years. When we re-platformed the entire network of Truckstop back in 2019, it took us 2.5 years. And it's because we have to. Do you remember that commercial that was on TV where it was an interview? They were a repair company that repaired airplanes while they were flying.
No, I don't remember.
We have a really tough job. We have to repair them while they're in the air. It's like
that's a tough job.
We have to do the same thing at Truckstop, which is we have to improve the product while it's working for owner operators. And so it's a really, and we can't break it, because breaking is akin to the plane crashing because it stops working. So it's the same thing on our end, where we have to be very cognizant of how we're changing things, because we don't want to interrupt anybody's business opportunities.
Well, I just had this conversation the other day about technology and software specifically, and this is something you guys have to deal with, and I can't even imagine, because the bigger you are, the worse this problem gets. The crazy thing about software, or even technology, but software's the biggest issue here, is you can do that software 1,000 different ways. And it's really, really easy to change something. Like, think about this. If we build a car and for some reason nobody likes the new style of door handle we put on there, everybody just hates it. Well, what are you going to do? Can't change it. You have to bring out a new model, or you have to make a whole new change, and you have to go back in different machines, and it's a pretty big project. But if somebody doesn't like something on your software, it's easy to change.
Oh, well.
Oh, you don't like that button over there? We can put it over here.
That's a good thing and a bad thing.
That's going to be my point. It sounds like a really good thing. Oh, you don't like that button there? Here, let's put it over here for you. That was easy. But now 37 other people don't like where that button is now. And what we know about humans is most human beings don't like change. Software always changes, always. It never stops changing. But the struggle is you can't please everybody, not even close. You do a software upgrade, and no matter how many ways you can show them this is better, they still don't like it.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a good example of that. I mean, when we were replatforming TruckStop in 2015 to our version 3, we're now on version 4. To version 3, we only changed certain things on it, and I kept giving Scott Mosgrip, our founder, a hard time about it. I said, Scott, there's gonna be parts of it that look new and parts of it that look old. He goes, that's okay. And I'm like, I'm a marketing guy, a marketing and sales guy. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not gonna look. He goes, look, the most important person is the owner operator, the small carrier. He goes, we change things very, very slowly for them because it slows their business down.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure we're not changing the header line where they know to click that button to go into this to find the freight that they're looking for. We want to change those things very, very slowly. If we don't ever have to change them, don't change them. And I'll tell you that's so important when it comes to being able to move and work. You need to utilize something very efficiently. But I'll tell you, this is another challenge that we came across. And this is for every owner operator out there. If you wonder why technology often moves forward when you don't want it to.
Right.
Because old technology gets, there's a technology term called fragility.
Yes.
In other words, it gets brittle. It breaks a lot. It doesn't take, it's a small pipe when there's a big pipe of data on the other end. And the big pipe of data keeps breaking the small pipe because it doesn't go through the pipe very well.
Yeah.
And the bigger thing is this, especially in today's environment, Kevin, you've got to have new systems because they have new security walls put around them. In order to protect your business, you have to have new technology. So because the thieves out there are smart too, and they know how to get around, security programs as well. So we have to build the best security possible. You have to do it through the newest, best technology available. Yeah.
And here's another factor that people don't understand, because we get this all the time. Why didn't you just leave it alone? It was working great. We loved it. It didn't need improved. And they might be right. It was working great. They loved it. And it didn't need improved. I get that. But you have to remember, most software today runs in a browser. Yours does. Ours does. We don't control the browser.
Well, that's a great point.
When the browser changes their technology, we are forced to change our technology. We don't, and then the other place that most people are using software is their phone. The phone is the same thing. That's right. It's another browser, or it's another operating system that we have to write an app to run on their operating system. Or let's talk about all software has to run on a computer. Apple changes their software. Microsoft changes their software. You have no choice if you're in the software world. You have to upgrade.
Yeah, sure do. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We love providing the service, and we love providing it. As Scott Mosgrip always used to say, we want to be the company that is not a barrier to any owner operator wanting to chase their dream of owning their own company. And so we want to be able to provide that software as best and broad and most available to them as possible at the lowest cost possible. No matter what we do, we'll always have an affordable product for an owner operator, because we want to be the person. We want to be the type of company that helps them be in business. And I hope everybody's that way. Providing products in that form. That doesn't mean you don't offer a more technical product that has a more features and functions, and it's at a different price. But you want to make sure you always offer that. Super important. So what a fun technology talk, man. And you need, and truckers out there listen to Kevin. This is so important for you to understand. You need to understand technology so you can run your business. It's super important.
Even if you want to minimize technology in your business, which is, I would have to say that my mindset about technology has changed dramatically over the years. I was early into technology. I've talked about it a lot. I was always on kind of the cutting edge. If there's a new technology, I want to go try it first. I do beta testing for all kinds of, even full-blown, operating systems. Like when Apple brings out a beta version, I've got a laptop that I'll run the beta version on, just because I like to see what's coming. But I've started to almost turn the other direction, is how can I minimize the impact of technology on my business sometimes now? At some point, I think we go so far. Here's a good example. Being the high-tech guy. The minute, and I flew on Southwest, and I flew a lot, you fly a lot. The minute Southwest came out with their app and electronic ticketing, I was all over it. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I just download the ticket right to my app, my boarding pass. I don't have to talk to anybody. I just walk on the plane when I want to. I don't do it anymore.
Oh, no?
It is not easier. There is nothing easier about that app. When I actually looked at what you have to go through to work that app, rather than just get a piece of paper, stick it in my pocket, and be done with it. How many times do you see somebody get up there with an app and their phone blacks out on them?
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah, there's some issues with that.
Or they're flipping through because they were texting somebody and they're looking for their boarding pass on their phone. What if your phone goes dead while you're sitting there? I mean, it's a complicated piece of technology that doesn't have much purpose. Mm-hmm. And yet I thought it was so cool when it first came out. Now I'm like, there's no way I'm using that app. It's so much easier to get that little piece of paper and just stick it in my pocket.
Yeah, well, I agree. I whenever I'm traveling, especially with my family, when there's a whole bunch of us, I'm always printing the boarding passes and those sort of things because it's just easier to deal with it. We're loading on the plane. I use both sides depending on things. And how I'm traveling, but I get you. Yeah, the simpler the better is usually more enjoyable on that end. So, but now here's another thing I want to make sure that we talk about, since we're on a tech trend here and talking about this, is that. So I'm 50. How old am I? I'll be 57 in like 20 days.
Okay, there you go.
20 days, I'll be 57. So I remember back when I was young, when I was in high school, that changes in things that I used every day came like once every, 10 or 20 years.
Right.
Because of the manufacturing process and the distribution process and everything went into it. Then we got into this new sort of internet world, and things started changing every like 5 years. Well, it is not uncommon for us to have advances in products every year.
Yes.
This is another reason why, for your listeners out there to pay attention to how the technology or whatever that you're using has a revolutionary change to it. And it's not just a small change, it's a big change.
Right.
And if your company doesn't change along with it, you are working yourself out of a job. And this is the same thing. It's kind of what we started with in this program, which is today, and your program today, which is make sure you are paying attention to how you need to adjust your business so you can continue to do the thing you love to do, which is to drive the truck and be free.
Yeah.
So it's super important.
One of my favorite books about that, I always like to give a book recommendation when we're talking about stuff. You know what my favorite book recommendation for this is?
Come on, which one?
It's one of the easiest books you're ever going to read, too. It is really, this is not an exaggeration. It's probably written at the 3rd or 4th grade level.
Now, the best books are.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's more like you were talking about when we were kids. I was just talking about this the other day, how much we used to learn from fables.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I actually made the statement when I was looking through all the fables and all the things we were taught back then with stories. And I probably learned everything I know to succeed in business by like the 4th grade.
Oh, didn't we all? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things we learned from fables were really powerful lessons, and I don't think we teach that much anymore. I had another point to that sentence when I started, though. What was I talking about?
You were talking about book recommendation.
There we go. Yeah. So this is almost like a fable. I mean, that's how it's written very simply. Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, great book. Love that book.
Isn't that an awesome book? Yeah. And people need to get that message, because if you don't like change, nobody cares. The industry doesn't care. The economy doesn't care. The world doesn't care. The world is changing, and it changes faster all the time. And I think it's just a good book to at least get you started down that mindset of, I can't stop this from happening. I better just get on board.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on the idea that your cheese is going to get moved. Yeah. And that's just true in life. I mean, I'll give you a couple of personal situations. When I started at Truck Stop, it was 2013. In 2014, I ended up getting custody of my sister's daughter, who was 4 years old. Well, that changed our life.
Yeah, it did.
Our cheese got moved.
Yeah, it sure did.
So now, just 2 years ago, my sister got custody back of her daughter, which is a great thing.
Yes.
And now here, 2 years later, I'm now taking care of my mom with dementia. So my cheese got moved again. So one more time, your cheese is going to kind of get moved. It just does. it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So no doubt. Yeah. So these things happen in life, and you just need to learn to adjust to them.
All right. One of the things, and we will get to rates and lanes and all those things, but honestly, that's one of those things that isn't changing a whole lot right now. It's just kind of there. But I like to talk about news with you and what's going on in the industry. And I don't even know what to think about this story. There was a truck driver who's in a construction site, and one of the construction workers walked in front of his truck and was blocking him. I'm only getting the details I could read. You know what a train horn is?
Yeah.
When people put them on trucks sometimes, they actually take the horns that are meant for trains and they put them on trucks. They're loud. I get it. They're loud. This construction worker standing in front of this guy, he lays on his horn, and it's a train horn. And I forget, somewhere in here, I think they said it was like 15 seconds or for approximately 10 seconds.
Right.
The construction worker ends up with hearing loss over this. And then after he ends up with hearing loss, he also, and this had nothing to do with the train horn incident, he had a brain tumor, and he had to have surgery, and the surgery left him blind. Well, none of this had anything to do with the train horn, but he sued the truck driver over this incident, and the court claimed that because of him now being blind and deaf, that this was much worse. They awarded him almost $2 million.
Wow.
And that driver has to pay this for hitting a horn for 10 seconds. Come on. I've seen some pretty horrendous, negligent acts where the award doesn't come anywhere near this. Now, it was a stupid thing to do. It's a stupid thing to put the horn on the truck, period. It just shouldn't be on there, and then we wouldn't have this. But $2 million, and the justification doesn't seem to be that he blew the horn. It was the fact that now this guy is blind, and because he's blind, being deaf is such a problem, they're going to give him $2 million. That just seems completely wrong to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you, our decisions sometimes have outcomes we don't want.
Yeah.
So certainly that's a challenge. Yeah, I agree with you that it's a challenge just because the horn shouldn't have been on the truck.
Yep.
All the decisions the guy made, but and it kind of goes back to, and you see this across the board in our industry right now. There's a tremendous push towards going after where attorneys see the money is. They'll go after where the money is, and so you just have to be careful with that.
Yeah. That to me just seemed completely wrong. You know, we talk a lot about in this industry now nuclear verdicts, and this is nothing like a nuclear verdict, but in a sense it almost is. It is way over the top for what the guy did. And even their justification doesn't seem right. He didn't have control over the guy getting a brain tumor and the surgery causing him to go blind. So I don't know. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about in the industry, and this has to be a huge issue for you guys. I can't imagine how much time and resources you spend on this. One of the camera systems in Kansas on the highways was hacked. It was a cyber attack.
Oh, my.
Why you would hack a camera system on a highway, I'm not really sure. It's not like it's critical infrastructure when you think about it. We did without cameras forever. Seemed like an odd target. But here's what got me. They're claiming it could take them months to get this system back up and running. Months.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is the camera system. Is it run by the state? Is it run by the...
It's a highway. Yeah, it's a highway system. It's run by, I would imagine, the DOT in Kansas. Cyber attacks are obviously becoming much, much more common. I talk about them all the time as far as drivers being prepared. Because if you're 1,000 miles away from home and they take down the electronic banking system in your area and all you have are credit cards, you're kind of screwed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I try to encourage drivers to carry a fairly significant amount of cash, and you want to be quiet about it. You want to carry it safely, but these things are becoming much, much more common. But this one seems a little odd that it could take them months to recover from this and get their system working again. Yeah,
that seems like maybe not enough development resources to do it. To be able to create the system. And depending on how a lot of these systems are run, states and federal government usually employ contractors that are the lowest bid on a project. And unfortunately, and this can be a good thing. If you've got a cost, it can be a very difficult thing.
Right.
I mean, you think about, like, for instance, the new registration system that the FMCSA is putting in place. They've been a decade trying to get it done.
Yeah.
It's a big change.
Yeah, but
650,000 companies is a big change, but it's taken them a decade.
And, that to me is so typical of government. It's why I try not to look to government for solutions, because they're just not very good at solving much of anything.
It's not really their job either.
Well, right. The other one, I just got a new license in the mail. Lisa realized my license was expiring on my birthday. She ordered it for me, which was really nice. And it just showed up. And I hate doing that kind of stuff. But I realized when I opened it, it's not the new, what do they call it, the Real ID?
Oh, yeah, Real ID. That's right. Yep.
Oregon's had nothing but problems with this. It was supposed to be implemented.
I got my new one.
This was supposed to be implemented like 3 years ago.
Right.
And because states like Oregon just said, look, we can't comply, we're not ready, the federal government had to keep pushing it back. But that's the same case. Businesses could never get away with this kind of stuff. You can't let things go for years. I mean, if you guys had a major cyber attack, you would have to pull out all the stops. You would have to do anything you had to do to get that back online. If you didn't, you would be out of business. You can't say this is going to take us 3 months to recover.
Well, I'll give you an example of things. Number one, first off, competition is always good for the customer.
Yes.
So every product needs good competitors. We appreciate our competition that we have with DAT and the other platforms that we have competitors in, the factoring in the carrier compliance and identity and fraud in. We appreciate the competition because it makes all of us better, and it makes us move at the speed. I like to use this phrase all the time. You have to move at the speed of business.
I like that phrase too.
If you don't move at the speed of business, you're going to get lapped by your competition. And the problem with government, and look, I appreciate our state and federal government and what they do to help our citizenry. However, it's never their goal to create efficiency. It's their goal to apply whatever process they have equally among the citizenry. And that means it's going to be slow. That means it's going to be difficult. It means it's going to be expensive because they don't have a profit goal in mind, number one. Right. Number two, which means they don't have an efficiency goal in mind.
Right.
And if you don't have those two things, you're never going to get there. I mean, we appreciate the competition we have because it makes us better, and it's better for the customer.
Well, and when I complain about the government, which I do a lot, I try to be clear. We are the government. Remember, this is a government of the people,
we are our government,
for the people. Right. I'm trying to get us to change our behavior. I don't think I'm going to change the government because the government's us. My point about this is we need to understand that is inherently how a government runs. They don't have a profit motive and they don't have competition. We have to understand that. And understanding that, we should stop asking the government to solve so many damn problems. They can't. So I don't blame it on this nameless entity that I call the government. I blame it on us, our own behavior, even in this industry. We have groups that constantly want the government to solve everything.
Right. I'll quote. I think it was Ronald Reagan that said this. It may have been another president, but I think it was Ronald Reagan that said, "The government makes a bad parent." So don't look to them to solve your problems.
That's a good one. I don't think I've heard that one before. That was Reagan, huh? Could have been.
I think it was Reagan.
Sounds like something he would say.
Always, yeah. Well, he was about less government and about people being responsible for themselves.
Exactly.
And that's the one thing I love about the transportation industry is that you can get into it. The barriers aren't high to get into it, and you can be responsible for yourself. And hey, look, that's the way I want to live my life. I don't want anybody else telling me what to do all the time. I mean, look, I work for Truck Stop, and yes, I'm responsible to Truck Stop for the things that I do, and I've agreed to work there, and I've agreed to do those things.
Right.
And so, yes, I put my own personal touches on it, but in the end, I have to do what is best for working for Truck Stop because it's what I've agreed to do. If anybody else running their business, same thing.
Yes. All right. Anything exciting going on in rates this week? Anything jump out at you?
A couple of things. I tell you, I've been watching the quotes on the side, the comments on the side, and there's a couple of them that are pretty good there. But let me talk about the data in the market. So we had 7 weeks of the pressure in the market being in the 70s. Now, normal pressure post-pandemic is about. I'm gonna just to give you a number. It's 50. It's about 50. We had 7 weeks in the 70s, and then we had 2 weeks in the 60s, and then it went back up to 70, which means if it's above 50, it means that it should favor the small carrier in the spot market.
Right.
Rates are making it a little more difficult. Certainly, I will never overlook that. But there's still plenty of freight moving at good profit margins across the board. And the numbers I quote every week. Remember, they're just averages.
Right. Right.
We look at. You can't imagine how many. We look at 2,000 major markets. We look at hundreds of thousands of lanes, millions of loads of movement. So we see this data all the time. So I'm just giving averages because you can't index off a certain lane unless you just run that one lane.
Correct.
But
right.
Look at these things, and so. The MDI, the market demand index, the pressure went back up to the 70s, which means it should favor the truckers more. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Freight wind is still 7.2% above the 5-year normals. In other words, there's still more freight in the market than normal. That's a good thing. Rates stayed even. Last week they were 237. This week they're 2. That's all freight. That's flatbed. That's dry van, flatbed, reefer, specialized, oversized, over-dimensional, and partial LTL. Which is partial truckload, not partial LTL, partial truckload.
Yeah.
So saving 237. The big change was in reefer though. Reefer's been kind of getting hammered a little bit over the last couple of months. It jumped 16 cents week to week.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's a big move.
That is what we call meaningful.
That's
the other ones moved 4 cents, 1 cent. No big, there's some change. That's good. Remember, these are averages. The other good thing is diesel went down 1 cent. The overall diesel it was reported by the big government people that report this that fuel went below $4 again, which is good.
I'm sorry.
That's a good trend.
I'm sorry, Brent. We're going to have to cancel your contract now.
what did I do this time?
we like high fuel prices around here.
We do.
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Well, tell me why.
It's a huge advantage to the small carrier.
Well, fair,
and that's our market.
Yeah.
It's the fuel surcharge that does it.
Right,
in order to create a fuel surcharge that works for an entire industry, and we have to have a fuel surcharge.
Yeah,
you can't run this industry without one because
you can't.
Our single biggest cost can change in minutes all day long, and it does. And you have to have a way to make up for that on contract freight. We've talked about this. If everything moved on the spot market, there would be no fuel surcharge.
Right, correct.
It wouldn't be necessary.
Market rate.
Right. Yeah, I know what the fuel price is today. I can give you a rate today.
Right.
But if I'm bidding a contract for an entire year, I need something to account, and so does the shipper.
Right.
The surcharge protects both parties, the shipper and the carrier.
For sure it does. Yeah.
And it's necessary. But the formula, once you understand the formula, and I can give it quickly without going through it all.
Yeah, sure.
The formula is a calculation that does this, and this is the whole point of it. A truck that gets 6 miles to the gallon, that's the number we've chosen, and we've stuck with it for a long time. And at some point it should adjust, but it hasn't, and that's actually an advantage for us.
Oh, sure it can be.
A truck getting 6 miles to the gallon will have fuel prices will have no impact on that truck's bottom line.
Correct.
That's the goal. If fuel goes up to $10 a gallon, it doesn't matter. The truck getting 6 miles to the gallon will have the exact same profit.
Right.
If fuel goes down, the truck will have the exact same profit. So fuel prices going down doesn't really help the industry. Mm-hmm. Even the average truck isn't helped or hurt by a fuel surcharge. The average truck at 6 miles to the gallon, which isn't the average anymore, but we still use it.
Right. I think it's 6.5 now.
Yeah. When you get 6 miles to the gallon, fuel price is completely meaningless. Your profit will never change.
Right.
If you get less than 6 miles to the gallon, you've got a problem when fuel goes up, and you're happier when fuel goes down. Mm-hmm. But if you're getting some of the numbers we talk about on this show on Fridays, we are now talking about 11 miles to the gallon.
Oh, yeah, sure.
10 is becoming very, very common.
Yeah.
At 10 miles to the gallon and $4 fuel price, that truck has no fuel cost at all. It's zero.
Well, I've talked about it a lot, which is, and this is where we try to coach the owner operators in the spot market. understand where the fuel surcharge, where the metrics are, and use it to your advantage.
Absolutely.
In the spot market, it is a daily rate. I realize that, but you can leverage that back to your broker provider,
absolutely,
or your shipper provider, and say, look, hey, right now the fuel surcharge is, fuel is way up, so you can negotiate more into it. So we're always encouraging owner operators know where the fuel surcharge amount is, so you can negotiate the best, because market rates still will move as compared to where fuel cost is.
Yeah, I will tell you right now that I have been really, really happy with how good a lot of our small carriers are still doing. And we're reviewing first quarter numbers from this year, and they're pretty strong. It's really wild to watch a 92-year-old company go out of business and watch a single truck owner operator succeeding really well.
Right. Yeah.
But if we were to, for whatever reason, if we were to go back to $2 fuel, a lot of small carriers would struggle worse.
Could be.
It would be worse for them. One more thing to talk about in this market, and that's why we talk about this, because things change. This is a dynamic. You got to be on top of it. I posted this morning. Here is the headline.
All right.
Controlling back office costs helps offset compressed broker margins.
Oh, for sure it does.
Well, yeah, and that was kind of a complicated statement to say, spend less money and, we compressed broker margins. Couldn't we have written a little simpler headline there? But anyway, I'll complain to FreightWaves. It was one of their articles. But I posted that and said, when times get tough, companies focus on controlling cost.
Right.
Well, why don't we just make that a daily practice?
That's the deal.
Why are we waiting until we're struggling to pay our bills to think about controlling cost?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's human nature, for one thing. We think the funds will keep coming our way, and certainly control what you can control, which the cost is a big part of it. This is why it goes back to that. If you're a truck driver, one of your goals should be getting 7 miles a gallon or greater, and moving towards as fast as you can towards 8, 9, or 10 miles, or even like our good friends Joel and Henry, who get almost 11.
Yes.
And then just putting all that profit in your pocket. Hey. And then here's the thing. This is a thing that so if truck drivers drive less when they're making more money, which is a natural thing in our marketplace of owner operators, then if you made $20,000, $30,000 more per year, you could be accomplishing your goal even faster.
Yes. I'll tweak something you said. Instead of moving faster towards fuel savings, we'll move slower towards fuel savings. One of the best ways to get there is just slow down. Yeah, I
get what you're saying. Yeah. Hey, a couple things I'd love to point out, because one of your Gabriel, who had a nice comment in here, he talked about the fraud in the industry. Since I brought that up, a little bit. He brings up a good point. He says, don't you think there would be less fraud if the FMCSA wasn't all public information? I would think for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is why the FMCSA is finally changing their registration information, doing multi-factor authentication, doing carrier identity, which, by the way, you have to do it every time you rent, lease, do something anywhere. You have to do you have to do personal identity.
Right.
I just had to do it when I rented a car from Thrifty 2 days ago.
Right.
So it's just part of life, but it protects all of us. And by the way, my credit card got hacked. I just had to go through this on Sunday when I was watching basketball with my mom. I mean, my mom loves to watch sports. I had to redo all of my credit cards into all the platforms that I pay money to, which is a bunch of them. So I sat there for several hours, and every one of them made me do multi-factor authentication. Some of them made me do identity. But his point was, would there be less fraud if it wasn't public? For sure there would, because there wouldn't be open
absolutely.
Access.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I haven't thought this through, but it's a good topic. Let's talk about it now. What would be the downside to not making all of this information public?
I think you'd have some systems out there. Like, for instance, we have a system that we provide carrier onboarding and clearance and information and monitoring for a lot of brokers out there, where they can get freight on trucks even faster because they have the data already available. We do it in a holistic standpoint, so we have access to that data. I think maybe it shouldn't be publicly available, but it should be privately available, but you have to qualify to get it.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
I think you can do it that way, because it is needed information. Obviously, with 650,000 operating entities under the FMCSA's guise, not all of them are commercial for-hire truck drivers, but It's an open door. Anytime there's an open door, the bad actors will find a way to get through it.
And no doubt.
So yeah, you're right. So if it wasn't public, certainly, and by the way, they're doing many things. Just so any of your listeners out there, there's many things that the FMCSA is changing. By the way, TruckStop has a 24/7 feed on all the FMCSA information. So anytime they change something, we have to adjust something.
Right.
And but they're making changes to protect the owner operator's privacy.
Good.
I mean, they point blank said this to me on multiple occasions when I pushed back and said, hey, we need to make sure we got a good pipeline of information because we want to make sure the roads are as safe as possible to making sure that's a qualified carrier, which is good for the carrier.
Yes.
Good for the broker, good for the shipper, good for the highways, good for the safety of the person driving the car on the highway. But some of the stuff that they were changing was limiting the availability of that information. But it'll all work itself out once they get their new system up and running. But I'll tell you, they are concerned about protecting against fraud for the carrier out there.
Good.
100%, even though safety is still the major thing that they go after.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. One more thing. I read this in CCJ.
Okay.
It was an article. The title was "The Pendulum Always Swings." And that sounded interesting to me, but I thought this was funny. The guy kind of gives his history of when he was going through college and he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he became a CPA and then ended up in the trucking industry as a CPA, but really decided he loved the trucking industry. So, but he made this statement, and he actually says, well, I'm just going to read it. He starts off the article, and then there's this quote, and it says, "What does all this have to do with a pendulum? I learned over the years that the class I thought that was not very important, Econ 101. How many people sleep through Econ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He thought it wasn't very important. And then he said, it taught me the law of supply and demand was actually very important and very real. As simple as it sounds, it is the most important economic principle that impacts our industry. Why do we have such a hard time convincing the people at the bottom of the market that this is true? Right?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Why do they think there's some big conspiracy that they got so far out of whack? They actually accused TruckStop, FreightWaves, and Craig Fuller and myself that TruckStop was manipulating the data along with help from FreightWaves, and I was out promoting it to the trucking industry to convince They really cooked up this big, complicated scenario that could never possibly work. No matter how hard those three entities tried to control a single rate, we could never even impact one rate. No matter how hard we tried, we could never impact a single rate. And yet, instead of believing in a very, very sound business principle that we teach people in their first year of college, they think there's some big conspiracy. Yeah,
well, it's funny you bring this up, is that when we went to the 2 weeks of quarantine and rates went to $1.50 or lower a mile in the industry, and everybody was just struggling greatly, and we all didn't kind of know in the trucking industry where our next meal was going to come from. I got a call from the FMCSA asking me if I would speak to the Department of Justice about the claim from carriers that there was price collusion. And just to kind of,
this is part of my problem with government.
Yeah.
How can we have people at that level of government that would even ask that question?
I think it's just lack of understanding of an industry is what it is.
That's what I mean. And they're writing policies that affect us greatly, and they don't understand a simple business. If you have to come to a group and say, is there any price collusion when the industry has hundreds of thousands of players, you're an idiot.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. You're right. There's a couple things here. Number one, when everybody has equal access to the information, then you can't have price collusion. So brokers have access to it, and carriers have access to it. Owner operators have access to it. And TruckStop in 1995, that's what we did.
Yes,
we opened up the information of the entire marketplace. So you got that. Number two is that because everyone has equal access, and because of the number of players in the market, and because it is a supply and demand marketplace, you can't have price collusion among it, because you've got 10,000 or 20,000 providers that would want to try to they have the rates on one end, you have carriers on the other end. They're trying to consume those rates, but the platforms like TruckStop or even DAT or Sonar with FreightWaves or Let's Truck, it's not our information. We're just the regurgitator of the information, so it can't be manipulated. And so the idea is that when you look at this, that you have to understand that it's just a standard supply and demand marketplace, and you're getting a report that is as accurate as it can be to a marketplace. So it's amazing. But here's what was interesting about the Department of Justice, because you brought up economist or economics.
Yeah.
I talked to all these attorneys, and they kept asking me the same question: could it happen? Could it happen? And I kept saying, I can't answer your question.
Right.
Because I can't give you my opinion. I'm not going to give you my opinion. I can give you the data.
Yeah.
But I can't give you my opinion. And finally, on the fourth phone call, they brought an economist on.
Okay.
And I said, can I show you the data? And they went, oh, standard supply and demand marketplace. I go, yep. They go, yeah, we're good. We don't need to talk about anything else.
Exactly. That's how simple this should have been.
It took Econ 101, which is an economist call on the phone. They went, yeah, we understand what you're, but thank you so much for your help. Thank you for serving the industry.
Right.
We won't be calling you again. So, hey man, I got to drop. I got to run to another thing here in Denver. But man, what a fun show to get to talk about technology, to talk about raids, to talk about fraud in the marketplace. Appreciate all the comments that everybody's putting down the side. Look, no matter what it is, if there's a way we can help improve this industry, let us know. We're wide open to anybody's comments. I know TruckStop and Brent Hutto is, and I know you are too, Kevin. Anytime we can help improve the industry, just keep telling us what we need to do.
Absolutely. All right. Great stuff, Brent. Thanks as always for joining us.
Great first time to be on the video. This is awesome.
I know. We do still have an audio issue I've got to work out. Had we tried to go to callers, the callers would not have been able to hear your audio.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure why. We're still working on that. But everybody listening on the app, and since nobody missed anything, everybody got to hear all of us. So I'll keep working on the technology, and we'll keep doing this.
All right, Kevin. Talk to you soon, pal.
Thanks as always. Talk to you next week. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Let me see what's going on with phones. We probably don't have any calls. We don't. So I will, I know Brent and I talked for a full hour there. Good stuff. Yeah, I am still, we can make the live guest work on the video like we just did. And if you're listening on the app, everybody hears everybody. I still have got some issues to work out to get the video to connect to our phone system so the guest would be able to hear. Had we tried to bring a caller on, caller would not have been able to hear Brent. I have some ideas, though. So we will get back to calls right now, or not. We might just end the show today. It's up to you. Hit that call now button on your app. I'll wait here a couple minutes. I'll go back. I think I might have some other topics if I didn't get rid of my notes. Let me check. All right. All right. I don't see any calls coming in. Hit the call now button, or if you're watching that live stream, you can dial 855-950-3835. Let's see if we can go back to some of, I don't think I covered all the articles I had this morning. Let's see what I could go back to. I could also check to see if we have any questions in chat. Yeah, here's a question from Todd. Can you fix the vibration in my body when I get home after working 14 hours? No, but I know that feeling well. What is that whole vibrating thing after you've been driving all day? You quit and it feels like your whole body's still vibrating. Other than that, it looks like a lot of comments on the chat. I don't see any questions. Here's a comment. When I first got into the industry, I thought, why is the MC number public info and why is it on the side of some trucks? Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Or even if the MC number needs to be displayed, that doesn't mean you should have access to all the emails and the phone numbers and the officers of the company. And I unless somebody could explain to me why all of that information needs to be public, I don't and I'm wide open. I'll listen to ideas if somebody has some reason, but I really don't see why your emails and phone numbers and everything else have to be made public when you apply to become a carrier. This is one of my problems, and I keep asking the question and nobody ever answers me. Why do we still have the authority process? And if somebody wants to answer that for me, I would love to hear it. Why don't we treat starting a trucking company the way we treat any other business I've ever been in? If I want to open a landscape company, I go buy some lawnmowers and some weed whackers, and I go knock on doors and I get somebody to pay me to mow their lawn. It's as simple as that. If I want to buy a trailer and stick a smoker in there and start a food truck or a food trailer, sure, I have to get some permits. I get that. But I don't have to go through this authority process and get permission from the government to be in business, and then the government takes my email and my phone number and blasts it out to everybody. I don't understand the whole process, why it still exists the way it does. So I'd love if somebody could explain that to me. I'd love to hear it. Looks like we've got some calls coming in. Let's go to Utah. Dana, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, how are you today, sir?
Doing good. What can I help you with?
Yeah, this isn't on the authority question, but I did think the authority was weird. I had been an independent contractor my whole life, and when I started truck driving and finally got my authority, it was I'm doing the same damn thing I always did, just a different tool. But all of a sudden, I had to go through the authority process. I thought it was off, for sure.
I don't really understand, like I said, when we got rid of a financially regulated market, which is what it was prior to deregulation, the government controlled the price of moving freight, and they kept it artificially high. And that's why there are some people that think we should go back, because all they remember is we had really strong rates back then. But it was artificial. And the government controlled the rate. They used supply and demand. That's the funny thing. All these groups that say supply and demand doesn't exist. No, that's exactly what our regulation was all about. The government said, we will not allow a new trucking company to move freight in this lane until we think we need a new trucking company. And the shippers had to tell the government, yes, we are having trouble moving freight in this lane. You need to issue some more authority in this lane. It was that controlled. Companies were able to, they legally could move freight from Cleveland to Dallas, but they couldn't move freight from Dallas to Cleveland, because the government said, no, you can't do it. And that's how they controlled the pricing of freight. Well, we got rid of that because that's anti-American, it's anti-competitive, it's anti-business. We got rid of it like we should have. Why does the process of applying for and getting authority still exist?
I don't think the government likes to fix broken.
It doesn't make any sense that process. And what's worse, though, is when I talk about this in the industry, people kind of push back on me. They're like, no, we have to have that because of the safety audit. No, you don't. Just have a safety audit. Why does one have any? Now, restaurants do not have to apply for authority to be in business, correct?
No, you're right. Yeah,
but do they?
The funny part is,
do they have to have? Do they have to have safety inspections by the government? Yes. Yes, we send the health department out there constantly. Could be local, could be state, could be federal. They go out there and inspect the building to make sure they're not going to poison us and kill us. No authority is required for that. We can still have safety audits to make sure carriers are safe without having this authority process that doesn't make sense.
Well, the funny thing is we have to jump through all these hoops, but correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we kind of considered non-educated out here?
Yeah, we are considered unskilled labor, right? Yeah.
Well, I have just a quick question, if you don't mind. I don't want to lose my train of thought here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a pretty bad signal. Look, I had listened to you guys, your Volvo guy. I can't think of his name, but
Joel.
He made mention about this.
All right. When we get to the important stuff, you're breaking up. Well, start over again. Joel is the Volvo guy on Fridays, but start over because I wasn't hearing anything.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it sounds good now.
Okay, I might drop the call, and I apologize. I was listening to you guys the other day, and Joel had mentioned you want the D13, you want the TC motor, and I do understand that. But is there an inherent reason why the D13 is not a good over-the-road motor or engine by chance?
Well, wait a minute.
It's still an okay package.
What was said about the D13 that makes you think it's not a good over-the-road?
Joel had mentioned it to a guy that was speccing a truck, but it could have been just because he was speccing a truck.
No, you
mentioned you don't want the D13, you want the TC motor.
Oh, now I understand. The TC is still a D13. So be careful with yeah, it's just a version. The D13 has been around a long time, still around, still the major engine you're going to get in the Volvo platform. They do make an 11-liter. You'll see that in smaller vocational. But the D13 is the motor from Volvo that we're really talking about. They don't even offer the 16 anymore. I talked about that earlier. But the TC, which stands for turbo compounding, that is the version of the engine we would normally want in an over-the-road operation. That's the most efficient on highway use. That's the engine that we can run, actually cruise down in the 900 RPM range.
Gotcha, right. Okay, that's the downsped motor that he's always speaking of.
Yeah,
correct?
the other version would be a variable geometry turbo and no turbo compounding. And then,
gotcha. And he said you don't want a VG motor, is not as efficient.
Correct. It's not meant to be downsped. It doesn't have the same advantage. The non-TC, the variable geometry, we even spec that one differently. If you are going to run that, we use different rear ends, different transmissions, different configurations, and it gets closer to some of the way the other engines run. We're not going to downspeed it down to 900. So when we talk about that super efficient, 10, 11 mile to the gallon Volvo, we're talking about the turbo compounded.
Yeah, gotcha. And I'm in kind of a situation where I'm really trying to buy a big bunk truck. I'm living on the road full time, and I want to have an apartment with me, not like 3,000 miles away from me. And there's not a real efficient range of those trucks anyway that are already built. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a roller coaster of builds on them.
When we're in
I have found some Volvos.
And this has always been a struggle. We've always spec'd trucks very differently than fleets ever do or ever will. That might finally be changing now. And typically, owner-operators are buying on the used market from fleets. And we've always had to deal with this. We tell people what the ideal specs are, and they'll come back and say, well, I can't find those specs on the used market. And that's not uncommon. And now when the
big bunk trucks are very few.
Well, then when you add in the whole big bunk, now you're really going off the reservation. There aren't that many of them, and the odds that they're going to have your specs are almost zero. And we could even throw in another factor here. Big bunks are really expensive. It is a very tiny part of the market, and it's a part of the market that may not care much about 1 more mile per gallon in fuel.
Right, that's right.
So I could see why you would have a very hard time finding the... Now, here's what you could do. You could look for a day cab first. I would try looking for a day cab with the right specs, and then just put the big sleeper on it.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm considering, like looking to find a sleeper company that'll put one on there. That's
out
definitely
there.
Not a bad idea,
ARI is the big one.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at ARI sleepers now, and I found some Volvos with 260,000 on them, but they're the Volvo package on the the 300 day cab chassis, and they have 308 gears. But I imagine they're putting that gear set in them because of I guess because they want them to carry the weight more. I'm not sure why they're doing that gear set.
Well, sometimes they're doing the gear set just because that's what the customer wants. That's what the dealer specs. Not always the most efficient. That's the first thing we have to understand. Dealers sell. Most of the trucks sold in this country are not as efficient as they could be because we don't put a whole lot of focus on it. We haven't. We do here. But as an industry, the average fuel economy in the industry, we're just talking about this. Brent said it was 6.5. I think it's actually 6.7 or 6.6. It's right in there somewhere. And that's according to ATRI, who usually has pretty good data. That, to me, is insane. How can the industry still be stuck under 7 miles to the gallon, and we're now talking about 11 starting to become common? 10 now is common. In my book, 10 is completely achievable and common. Not as common as it should be, and we're pushing 11, and yet the industry is still stuck at 6.6. That to me just doesn't even make any sense, but that's why you have a hard time. Now, here's another advantage to finding a used truck, but then building your own sleeper. These sleepers are all custom. You get to design that sleeper any way you want it. When you're building a sleeper with a company like ARI, you decide what amenities you want and the layout and all of that. So sometimes kind of nice if you can get a good used truck at today's truck prices and then go put the money into the custom sleeper.
Yes, sir. I agree. Well, cool. I appreciate you dialing me in on that motor. I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that was the thing. Sure. He was just talking about the D13 is the motor. We just have to look, is it variable geometry or turbo compounded?
Gotcha. Understood.
All right.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a good day, and thank you for your time.
You too. Thanks for the call. Let's go to... Oh, we just lost the call, too. All right, but we'll go to this one. We'll go to Florida. Tom, good morning.
Morning, Kevin. Hey, that train horn guy, I sent you an X or Twitter or whatever it is.
Yeah, I just read it.
The guy doesn't blow the horn at the guy, right? Then the guy doesn't go to the hospital. Then the guy doesn't know he's got a brain tumor. Then the guy doesn't die. So, you know what I mean? And there's just no possible way that you're not covering your ears after like 1 second of train horn anyway, right?
And look, I don't.
That sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me.
The whole thing, I mean, I've been around extremely loud noises my entire life, and everybody told me I was going to damage my hearing. Starting with two-stroke motorcycles as a kid, all day long. I did a lot of riding and a lot of racing, and they're pretty loud. Then music. And when I'm in a car, there's no such thing as the music being too loud for me. When I'm by myself, I love loud music in a car. So I had amplifiers.
Right. Really?
That was always a thing for me. I always had crazy loud stereos. I don't know what it is about just cranking up the music when I drive. And everybody told me, you're going to go deaf. Then in the military, being around jet engines. And actually, in this article, they compared the train horn to a jet engine. They're about the same decibel level. And I was notorious for not wearing my hearing protection on the flight line. I just didn't do it.
Right.
I didn't. I'm young. I don't care. And here I am, 61. I have no hearing issues whatsoever.
None. And then there's another issue too, right? So the guy says he went to the doctor, and the doctor says he's deaf. Well, the doctor asked him, "Can you hear this?" What do you think the guy's going to say? I mean, how do you? Right? Like, no, can't hear what?
I guess I'm just a little skeptical that the train horn for 10 seconds actually destroyed his hearing.
How many? The whole thing. If that poor trucker pays $1, he's a fool.
Well, first off, where's this money going to come from? Because I promise you, he doesn't have $2 million laying around that he's just going to hand over. So I don't know why this story struck me as so odd, but it just did.
No, me too. Hey, so I'm listening to the. I told you I did the Kennedy book thing. Now the Wuhan cover-up, and I'm telling you what, man. If it wasn't for guys like this, like Kennedy and even Trump, we wouldn't have known how bad our government is. But what an incestuous relationship between the CIA and Big Pharma, the media that's running Big Pharma, and the whole thing is a big money grab. Between and England's involved. But I just wanted to mention it to you in case you do happen to one day read them. But I don't know how we fix it, except to say, you know what? I mean, we're talking billions of dollars that they're giving to the NIH and all that, and then they're running it through the U.S. AID, and then hiring guys from Big Pharma and Bill Gates, and the whole thing is a complete disaster. We got to just quit giving these people our taxpayer money.
I couldn't agree more. There's so much. It just seems like all of these things have been trends for years. The government, politics, the medical system, vaccinations. We've talked about all these things for years. None of this is really new. But it seems like that since COVID, everything accelerated and got worse. And it's just hard. Sometimes it's hard to look around and say, what the hell happened? I mean, I know all of these things were here. They all existed before, but it all seems like they've all exploded now, even to the point where nobody's really even trying to hide it anymore.
No, that's the whole thing. And that's the whole thing. And it was after the AIDS thing, and everybody got scared of AIDS, that they started throwing money at Fauci, which just basically killed. He's killed more people than the devil is, in my opinion. But after that, we started throwing money at the AIDS virus. Well, if we would have taken that money and put it in the cancer research instead of this gain of function research that they're still doing in Ukraine.
Wait. I'm going to push back.
It's absolutely insanity.
I'm going to push back. Not that I disagree with 99% of what you just said, but I do strongly disagree with one of the statements you just made.
Cancer?
Putting money into cancer research. How much more can we possibly spend on cancer research? Go back and look at how much we have spent in 50 years of the American Cancer Society being around, all these programs, all these donations, all this funding, all these walks for cancer, and yet cancer is worse now than it ever is. I just lost a dear friend to what I would consider a turbo cancer, and it's not any better. Why do we think spending more money is going to improve this?
Right. Was Peter vaccinated? I mean,
he
I
was.
don't know if we know that, but
he was.
Blame it on that. What?
He was.
He was.
Him and I had this discussion, and I don't. He didn't want to, but I don't remember why. It was one of those weird circumstances, but I don't remember what it was. But I remember talking to him about this. He said, I didn't want to. I did it, and I don't remember why, because I was more focused on I was actually trying to help him with his health at the time, and I was focused on other things. But he got it and didn't necessarily want to. Yeah, and we can't absolutely prove that the vaccine caused the cancer. But like I said, Pete was a pretty healthy guy. I've known him a long time. And it followed a pattern that is new. And that is he went from never a single occurrence of cancer in his life to all of a sudden you've got cancer and a year later you're dead. That seems to be a new pattern.
It's third stage all of a sudden.
Right. And they're actually being called turbo cancers. It's common enough that we've given them a name. And I question everybody who dies now. Did they need to die? Did something happen along these lines? Did that vaccine actually compromise his immune system so much that that's why he got the turbo cancer and died so quick?
and we're never gonna know. We're never gonna know in our lifetime. I mean, even look at the. Do you remember a long time ago? I had heard that that doctor out of North Carolina, I forget his name, but he's part of the Fauci group, and he was doing the research with China, the gain of function research, and he figured out a way to splice the genes where you can't really tell that the genes were spliced for this gain of function research, and he actually patented the whole thing. Well, as it turns out, you can figure out where that like COVID came from the Wuhan lab, and they tried to hide it with this specific gene splicing that he did where you hide it. But those same people, they put that moratorium on the paperwork and the vaccine injuries for, what was it, 70 years, 60 or 70 years?
Yeah.
So we'll never know. So
Right.
we'll never know. We'll never know in our lifetime. And that's just a travesty. This government's just gotten too big, and I don't know what to do about it except.
Well, unfortunately,
I don't know what else to do.
If you study history, nobody in the history of the world has figured out what to do when a democracy gets to this point. They all fail.
No, and it took Rome 100 years to fall.
Right.
Yeah, it took Rome.
Right.
The fall of Rome. You think that happened in a couple of years or something?
Oh no, it was a long
it took
time.
them 100, and I think we're halfway through. It's almost mimicking what Rome did.
In a lot of ways, there are many, many similarities. That's what I mean. If you just study history and you don't have to dig that deep, and Rome is one of the better examples because Rome had built something at the time that nobody else had ever built. They had built a very successful society.
Yeah.
And it worked until it didn't. Yeah. And the problem seems to be that we even have this measurement when you get to the point that more than half of the voting population, because that's really what matters, is receiving enough benefits from the government that they'll just keep voting for those benefits.
The Tetler cycle, I think it's called.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And then once you've gone past, and we're there, we're there. You see it when I don't know why I'm shocked, but I'm shocked that there's a single human being in this country that thinks paying off somebody's student loan debt is a good idea.
No, that's just all for votes.
Right, that's it. That's what I mean. So we're there. We're there. When you have this many people in the country who believe you should take a whole bunch of money from people who didn't go to college and didn't borrow any money and use it to pay off money for people who did borrow money and go to college and got the education, something is seriously wrong with your society.
Yeah, exactly. And then wanting to give citizenship, and that was a big thing with Rome, is they wanted to give Roman citizenship to, it was Italy at the time, it was the outer big Italy, and give citizenship to those people so they could have the same thing that all the Romans had, and that was part of the downfall, and they're doing the same thing here, and printing money.
The system printing money has to collapse when you do those things. Here's another one. And I don't even like to talk about this sometimes because honestly, I don't care who sleeps with who. It's never been one of my issues. I don't want to know. I don't care. I don't think it has any impact on things. But when you start comparing what happened in Rome and what's happening in this country, there was that factor as well. They had become very
there was.
What's the word I want to use here?
Decadent, maybe?
Decadent's probably a good word, yeah. To the point where all we care about is feeling good. And sexually, that was a problem in Rome as well. And when we look at the extremes we've gone to, like I said, I don't even like talking about this because I don't care what people do in their own life. But when we're at the point where we're arguing whether or not 10-year-olds should be allowed to get hormone blockers and horribly destructive sexual surgery. Something, again, has gone really wrong in our society.
No, and when do those people and those people need to be put in jail and they'll never be prosecuted. But just like Fauci and his cabal, follow the money. It's absolutely it's just horrendous. I mean, follow the money through the emails that we did hear about through Big Pharma. Look at Moderna, where they had to pull that vaccine. It was so bad, but we don't know how bad it was because they won't release any of that information.
Right.
I'd like to see them track the vaccine by company, and then track the vaccine injuries that way to see really what's going on. Anyway, so I just thought I'd cheer you up with a little bit of shitty news
have you ever heard of
the government?
Yeah, I know. Have you ever heard of somebody? His name is Callie Means.
No.
I don't know where this guy came from. He founded a company called TrueMed. I believe in almost everything the guy is saying, and he's been very vocal, and he's been getting a lot of traction. TrueMed was really just a payment solution company. It's not really a medical company. It's actually a financial company, and it helps consumers with pre-tax HSAs and FSAs. So I'm actually kind of a fan of the company itself. But I'm not really sure what the guy's medical background is. I'm gonna go do some more digging on this guy because he keeps popping up.
How do you spell his last name?
MEANS, and his first name is CALLEY.
Oh.
His mom died in 2022 of, I think it was pancreatic cancer, if I remember right. And since then, he's been obsessed with the root cause of our metabolic diseases. And we all know, right? If you listen to this show, we all know what the root cause is. It's our horrendous diet. He gets that too. But he's getting an awful lot of traction.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go see what else I can read about this guy and see what he's up to.
He'll end up suiciding himself here probably within a couple of weeks. Then, if he's got too much traction.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm even looking at for some reason. Imagine if I were to do a YouTube video with this title. What would end up being in the video and how long it would last on YouTube. Here's the title of it. Why now is the time to question everything. I'm shocked that that video still exists on YouTube.
No, did he make one that's still on YouTube?
That's the title. He made a. I haven't watched it. I'm gonna go watch it.
Watch that.
I was just looking. I'm thinking, how do any of his YouTube videos last? I know what this guy talks about. He talks about all the same stuff I do. I'm this week. I'm on my third strike. It looks like I'm going to lose my YouTube account completely, and that's in 1 month.
Are you on Rumble?
Yeah, I am on Rumble.
Are you on Rumble yet?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't see any of your stuff on Rumble. I keep saying every day I'm gonna switch off of YouTube and go to Rumble, and then off of. I'm like Pavlov's dog, where I'm just so used to hitting the buttons that I hit.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Here's the other issue for us.
It's horrible that I.
The reason we do the live stream.
For you, it's got to be a nightmare, but at the same token, right?
Well, the reason we do the live stream is because that's our marketing. That's where we're going to get our new audience. Well, sure, I'm on Rumble instead of YouTube, but on YouTube, X is my biggest draw. I get more watchers on X than any other. YouTube was number 2. Most days on Rumble, it's exactly 0. In fact, I need to go over and make sure that it's actually working. I know Aaron set it up, and I know when I click on my Go Live button, Rumble's there. But when I look at my stats, my viewers on Rumble are 0.
Well, I try to watch it on X, but I can't. going down, listen to it on X just because I wanted to send that message about the train horn thing. But tomorrow you'll be on Rumble Live then also?
I believe every day I'm on Rumble Live. Let me double check and see if it's in here.
Okay, because tomorrow I'll see if it pops up live and then give you a call. Either
well,
way,
it's
I
weird.
Think once you fit into the algorithm there.
It's kind of weird. I'm going to have to go check on Rumble. Rumble was different. We had to go in and actually write some programming. The streaming service that I use doesn't connect directly to Rumble the way it does X or Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or even Instagram was a little weird. Okay. Rumble was the most weird. And now I'm looking at my stream and all of the other sites show my status as streaming, but for some reason, Rumble is showing it as sending data. Not sure what that means.
Yeah,
maybe it means I'm not really live,
difficult.
that they're capturing it as a recording. I don't know.
Okay, so they're not doing the live stream.
I'll have to go look.
I listen to Dan Bongino a lot, and every day he live streams on Rumble, and he actually gets up over 100,000. He's huge, but over 100,000 people. He's off YouTube now for the same reason, but I imagine all the streaming platforms that you use probably make it more difficult to do it through Rumble just because it's a more conservative, and they're sort of trying to squash the free speech thing.
One of the things we can't really originate our video on any specific service. If we used X Live or Facebook Live, then that's the only place it would be. We use a software and a service that we originate our live stream in. It's called Restream. And then that video gets connected to multiple platforms and we live stream.
I see. So that's sort of like you're running your own podcast,
right?
Type thing,
and then putting it out on all the other podcast services, right? But if you just go into, Blog Talk Radio, for example, and you can go live on Blog Talk Radio, but the only people that could hear you if you're doing that are people with the Blog Talk Radio app or logged into Blog Talk Radio. So yes, we originate our. I know and here we go again with, well, why did you change your software? Well, because one of our platforms changed and we had to comply. I mean, that's sometimes why we've got to make changes, and it's just part of our world now with software and streaming and services and.
Yeah, somebody should come up with universal that would feed them all. Maybe that's a software you should write.
That's what we're using.
Feed them to everybody.
No, remember when I just 6 months ago I was talking about how our new broadcast software was going to become a new product for us.
Right.
That's what we were building.
You're talking about right now.
That's what we were building. But it turns out we've dropped that idea. I didn't realize there were already 3 big services out there doing this. The reason I didn't realize it is because we were focused on audio and podcasting with our app, but we were building in video. It was just farther down the line. I mean, we had already started working on it. We were testing the video. But what I found was there's at least three big services now that already do that and had all the features we were building in. We didn't find them because we weren't focused on looking for video platforms. We were focused on audio and podcast platforms.
Oh, right.
And what we were building didn't exist in the audio world. It is what we're using now. We are using software that you load up one piece of software, you originate your live stream from that software, and you can connect it to all these different services.
Wow. Yeah, that's above my pay grade, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, like I said, I tested 3. There's probably more, but I tested 3, and after looking at 3, we kind of settled on this one because I really liked all the features.
And they're the ones that are supposed to be streaming to Rumble also.
Yeah, and just had Aaron's checking it because I have people telling me we're not on Rumble Live, and we should be.
Right. Okay.
So now
well,
there's another thing that we never used to have to deal with. We are now streaming to 8 different platforms, but that's 8 different platforms we have to keep up on. I didn't realize we weren't on Rumble. I don't know what went wrong.
Right. I think I'm gonna switch over. I think I just figured I'm gonna just do Rumble instead of that stupid YouTube. They just block everybody. I wish Tony had called in today with I hate brokers.
Yeah, no Tony today. I don't know why. Why? What were you hoping to get from Tony?
Because I had a broker call me this morning because they have me on tracking and stuff, and I had a tire blowout yesterday on Sunday. And it took the guy like 5 hours to come out and fix it, And I'm like, Lord. And I was right on the bubble of making it by 11. I had to be in Jacksonville by 11, and it's 1 now, and I won't make it till right about 3 o'clock. And the broker's calling, the ship's leaving at 5, and just calling me every name in the book and whatnot. And I said, look, I understand I get it. I really do. I understand disappointment. Because when I was 5, I asked Santa for a pony, and I didn't get the pony. And, oh boy, I thought I thought he was bad for I said that.
I asked for the Mach 5, and I didn't get that either.
Right? See, life's just full of disappointments. Makes you a stronger person in the end.
That's right.
Yeah, that didn't work out well. All right, Kevin. Thanks, man. Good luck with that Rumble deal.
All right. Well, I'm going to go work on it now because we're out of calls. We've got a lot. Oh, let me check some notes here and see if. Okay. I did learn something today about the video stream and the audio. Not sure if I learned enough to fix it or not. It's just weird when we have a guest on, you got to go in and change settings, and I haven't exactly figured out what happens. We'll get it, though. I may go work on that right now. I'm going to wrap this up today. We will see you back here tomorrow for the Power Hour. I believe it's a completely normal schedule this week. All the usual shows. We've got, we do not have CMC tomorrow. We're on an off week. We will have the coaching call on Thursday. If you have any issues, you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can do that in our group coaching. Even though it's group coaching, I spend as much time as I need to with each individual person. I really can consult in group coaching on almost anything. Anything you hear me talk about on the show for sure. Business, money, health, retirement accounts, taxes, budgeting, financial planning, all those things, fuel mileage, maintenance issues, getting started, getting your authority, growing a fleet. Anything I would talk about here on the show, we can cover in group coaching. The difference is you can get some real one-on-one and we can go much deeper. So if you are interested, head on over to the website, truckingtribes.com, and get signed up for that. We will see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.